So how has embracing that vulnerability actually strengthened your leadership and, made you a better business owner, leader, boss, friend, parent, all the things?
Yeah, look, and it's probably more recently that I've started opening up, I guess, about the story and the journey. I've been sharing some of that content in the past 6 months as I've dived into the writing and trying to understand my own journey. And so it wasn't something that I was naturally open with back in the early days. I think coming from a different upbringing and a very focused and direct upbringing, my stepfather was a very, very hard worker. And that sort of lifestyle was drummed into us from a very early age. So, there wasn't a sick day that was considered that you could take. I came from that mindset or that particular upbringing that you just worked hard, you got on with it, your feelings were private and you moved on, So transition into vulnerability has been a big shift for me over the last sort of couple of years. I always, encouraged it in others, but I wasn't encouraging it in myself. And it wasn't until I tackled the first ride in 2019 and what I guess cracked that open for me was the type of people I met on the ride, the openness that was there and the ability to lean in and have real conversations and lowering the mask, I guess, of, life is tough, life is challenging. We have our ups, we have our downs, but what I've worked out over all these years is your situation is always temporary, whether you're living in success or you're living in some failure. It is all temporary as you move through the days.
So for me, when our personal life and our professional life both come crashing down, and you just touched on that then, things are temporary, but it can, at the time, it's devastating, it's debilitating. You think you're never going to get through those really tough times. So what are some of the strategies for showing up in your life as a leader, as a business owner, that you've adopted to get through those down times?
I think it's being very deliberate with your personal development, always being on the lookout for resources that can help you move through, the situation that you're in. I've always looked for whether it was an audio or whether it was a book or whether it was a person to really try to get the best advice. And that's something that I've always been able to find a way through, even though that you're facing quite difficult situations, growing a business, a challenging time, leading people. And one of the most challenging times is leading yourself. But if you can become resourceful in what you are looking for, I think that's really what's helped me through. And that is being open to new information, being open to learning your way through any challenge, and probably having just a mindset, the situation I'm in right now is temporary and I need to continue to grow and look for the opportunities. And I guess I've been blessed with a positive mindset, like even when things happen that on a negative side or really challenge, I'm always looking for the positives or the lessons that come out of that. And I think that by opening up and being completely truthful with yourself, sometimes when you're staring in the mirror, you can have that honest conversation with yourself about what your needs are. And I think intuitively, we all know what we need. It is the first thing that you think about when you wake up in the morning. If you tune into yourself, you know what you need and what you need to do. And I guess it's just having the guts to follow that path. Every time we ignore our intuition or our feelings, when something comes up and your every inch of your body is saying, I shouldn't be doing this, and you continue to do it over the years, that is where things have really started to fall apart. Versus when I'm leaning into my intuition on decisions I need to make that wholeheartedly, even though they're difficult, I need to make them, things start opening up in the right way as you lean into what you know that you need to do.
And I think that's really great advice. And As you were speaking early in that conversation, then I was thinking to myself, ask about leaning into your own intuition. So you must have heard my thoughts there on that. But so often we look for external things to fix us, external solutions, or we need better tech stack. We need a higher performing sales agent. We need a better property manager. But the last place most of the time we look is at ourselves. And if we're not, and I know for myself, I've really struggled leading teams. It's not something that has come naturally to me. I'm a doer, I'm a fixer. I roll my sleeves up and I just get in and do it. So I guess, when it comes to leaning into your intuition, because I know, probably some people are like, skeptical about that, or how do we do that, or, what even is that? Do you have some sort of practical examples and I'll just share one that I do. So when I open my eyes first thing of the morning, I know that my first thoughts are going to affect my day ahead. And I can very easily spiral if it's negative thoughts. So I will start my day with a really positive affirmation, today's going to be amazing. I'm grounded, I'm loved, I'm, capable, whatever comes to me. What sort of stuff do you do to tap into that sort of internal world?
I've done many things over the years. I think at a very early stage in my career, I recognized the benefit of getting coaching. I was like you, very into my sports right throughout my school years, right throughout my teenage years and into my early 20s. And throughout all of my sporting career, always had coaching and someone who would critique your technique, someone that you could lean into for advice, someone that you looked up to or admired, and someone who you could sort of follow in the footsteps as the student. And I've always looked as myself as the student and looked for resources to be able to get perspective and to lean into some really good coaching. So as I started to come into the real estate career, I looked at who is actually in this industry from a coaching perspective that I could get advice from on how to build a career, and who is from a personal point of view, someone that I could lead into to assist and support me personally, because they're two different operators. And one thing I learned quite early on in my career is you can't rely just on one coach or one person to be the it for you. There's multiple different skills that are obtained through different coaches at different times. And I leaned into, in those early days, Lee Woodward was phenomenal and still is, regarded as one of Australia's best real estate coaches. And I really leaned into Lee's audios and all of his CDs and tapes back then. I was listening to some great agents. And I was listening to their techniques and how they spoke to people and how they engage with the community. Lee had a phenomenal model that I started to build my business on, because I literally had no idea what I was doing. But I did know that I could get the training and I did know that I could get the support. So I leaned into a lot of Lee's coaching for real estate, but I also had a coach from a human perspective where I found partway in my career a beautiful coach by the name of Jen Cudmore. A lot of your listeners may have worked with Jen over the years, and some may be looking for someone to work with. But Jen really opened up a different side of me into manifestation and really looking at, the kinesiology as a way of tapping into what my capabilities were. And the coaching that I did with Lee from a technical perspective, the coaching I did with Jen over the many years started opening up different belief systems for me to be able to tackle, the day-to-day difficulties from a human perspective. And leaning into those coaches during those years really helped me build a solid foundation. It wasn't going to make me resistant to challenges, but it was going to equip me with tools to be able to work with when those challenges did pop up.
Yeah, 'cause so often we think we've got to have it all worked out ourselves, and it's a sign of a weakness, I guess, that if we need to ask for help. But too often in life, I think we get to breaking points, or we're at breakdowns or burnouts, and then we're like wondering how the hell we ended up at this destination. Whereas, and I guess my question is, why do you think we don't ask for help sooner and lean into all those amazing people out there that we can lean on for support? Again, it comes to us, doesn't it? Like we're not listening to ourselves when, yeah.
If you're ready to be a super organised, focused and productive property manager, buckle up, because Colmio is about to revolutionise the way that you work. Colmio is the driving force behind property management excellence in residential real estate. Now picture this, a comprehensive end-to-end system designed to be the beating heart of your property management tasks, manage your properties, owners and tenants, and handle payments, inspections, and even marketing listings without leaving the platform. Colmio is designed to be an all-in-one solution to all your property management needs. And here's the game changer. Colmio isn't just software. It's been awarded the most innovative prop tech scale up in 2023. Yes, you heard it right. Colmio has been recognised for their groundbreaking approach to property management software. How good is that? So property managers, whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, dive into the future of property management with Colmio. You can book in a demo with the team today and go in their weekly draw for a Prezi gift card worth $100. All you need to do is to head to the link colmio.com/thatpropertymum, and Colmio is KOLMEO.
Yeah. I mean, there's still been, even with the coaching, there's been two distinct periods through my career where I went through a phase of burnout. I was just so fixated on achieving a certain goal that you are almost blinded by what you're looking to achieve. And even with the coaching, fall off the end of a diving board. I was just really focused on building the business. I'd had a few things that had gone wrong personally. I thought that I could just throw more and more time and energy at work and serve and service. And there was a point in my career where I just completely burnt out. I nearly walked away from the industry, and it wasn't the industry that was doing it to me. It was me. I had to self-reflect on how I was behaving and how hard I was working. I wasn't giving myself time and space. So I was throwing everything into client service because, I'm a nurturer by nature. So, what you said at the start, Kylie, a Mrs. Fix-It or a Mr. Fix-It, you feel that you can fix all of these other issues that are going on in people's lives because you serve to your job.
Or to avoid fixing yourself as well. That's why.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. The focus is outward. It was never inward. And by ignoring the inward focus, you could just serve until you dropped. And so there's been two periods in my career that I've gone through that phase. And, and I think you don't know where your limits are until you hit your limit sometimes, because it's almost like this blind spot to what we're capable of achieving. Because again, you're listening to, reading so much content about you could do anything. So that gives you the belief that you can continue to drive on until all of a sudden, bang, you hit a brick wall, and it almost comes as a bit of a shock. Like, I can't believe that just happened to me. But if you get some distance on it and you look back on it, there's obvious signs that this is the trajectory you're on.
What were some of the signs for you then? Yeah, what were some of the signs that were leading you to that destination that you were ignoring? And I guess then flip it to what you did to get out of it, because I think everyone listening would be able to relate to what you've just explained there. I know personally I can, and 90% of the people I jump on calls with have all hit that destination.
Yeah, I guess when I came into real estate, I was personally developing so much in terms of how much time and effort I was putting into radio and audios and trying to learn the trade, and also trying to learn more about engaging with clients. But then I had a high work into me from a very early age of, your feelings are private and you get on with it. So I guess I was ignoring a lot of those intuition feelings. Like, I was not making time for myself. I I had this responsibility in some way that I needed to look after mum's business and I needed to look after my future, and I was going to get there, in record time. And what I was not doing was giving that time and that space to myself, giving myself some reflection time or just some personal time to have a break. I hadn't had a holiday in 3 or 4 years. I just kept working. I didn't stop. I think, I just forgot that my needs were important and I focused on everybody else's needs. And looking back on it now, I was the axe that just kept swinging to knock the trees down, not stopping at all to sharpen the blade until it was too late, and the harsh reality of that was that I put myself in hospital, and it was probably 3 or 4 days on a drip, completely almost comatose. I remember driving home from an appointment and all the roads started to go blurry. And as I'm driving into my driveway, I opened the car and I basically fell out of the car. And my wife called an ambulance at that stage. And, a couple of hours later, I woke up in hospital and I was on a drip, and they thought I had meningococcal because of some of the symptoms that had come up and the fact that I was just extremely dehydrated. They were trying to pull some fluid out of my spine to test it, and they couldn't get fluid out of my spine. And that's when they realized I was just severely dehydrated and burnt out. So, yeah, I think from that, there was a big wake-up call that this needs to stop and my lifestyle needs to change. And so obviously it was a step-by-step process to wean myself off that lifestyle that I was living and in the pursuit of happiness, because, the $1 million real estate agent mindset, I was listening to some of that audio and I don't know what I was chasing, but it wasn't real. And back then, and I don't hold any of people that were pushing that agenda, but the industry as a whole was pushing an unrealistic lifestyle. And I'd taken the bait, hook, line and sinker of what the $1 million agent's life looked like. It didn't look like that for me, but I was chasing it. And I wanted the big home and the big office and all the accolades and the awards. And I was chasing that ideal of what a successful career in real estate looked like until I absolutely hit the wall. Beyond that, I've been able to completely change my world and my life, focused on myself with good coaching, focused on my needs and focused on the customer's needs, And over the years, I've worked out a way of being able to deliver that level of service by just being present. I was at one stage playing the volume game where I wanted to have X amount of transactions for the year. And that meant that, you're almost looking at every client as a transaction, because when you're chasing a number, you're not chasing the needs of a person. So setting a goal that I wanted, to hit 250 transactions in a year, you're not really focused on the customer's needs at all. You're focused on that transactional number turning up.
And your bank balance.
And so I wasn't even looking at the bank balance, to be honest. I was just focused on the accolade of hitting these numbers that weren't even numbers that I'd come up with. It was a number that I'd heard on some audio that some amazing agent had achieved. And I thought, well, if they can do that, I'm going to do that, because I've got this mindset of continuous improvement and all of this number one crap that we leaned into years ago. As I said, I took it hook, line and sinker and I was on that journey. But nowadays life is completely different for me. I'm completely present in the lounge room. I enjoy doing the work. I've got to be mindful of the clock, because I can get into a really deep conversation with a client, because I just enjoy doing the work, being there with the clients, understanding their stories and doing what I can to help. You know, there's no goal on the amount of transactions that I want to complete for the year. Yeah, so it's been a big shift.
Can I ask you a quick favour before you leave this episode? Now, we all know how important reviews are for businesses these days, and mine is no different. If you could spare just a minute to follow, rate and review this podcast, it would mean a lot to me. In fact, what would get me super excited is if you share this podcast with someone in the industry who you think might need to hear some of the episodes right now. And if you'd like to find out more about working with me or any of the products I have to help you start, grow or scale your property management business, head to my website, thatpropertymum.com.au, or check out the links in the show notes.